Hey everyone, Sari here, and welcome back to another week of Astra Season offense matches. After getting her fully merged, thanks to this year's Hero Rises banner, I was looking forward to getting creative with Thorr during her bonus week. While she is a natural fit for Galeforce teams, she's also a very solid melee specialist with farsave support. This build was partly inspired by my Ashnard build, taking advantage of Thor's solid res stat and passable speed to bring Pegasus Flight online, while using Unity to exploit enemy odors and obstruct to help her create choke points for the team. Backing her up with Mooseball lets her hit extremely hard on her counter swings, making the instant soul retaliation an excellent way to sustain through multiple combats. Mooseball also does a lot of work for Fjorm, magnifying the bonus damage of Ice Mirror to let her one-shot her opponents even through damage reduction effects. The other mythics are here for support. The sabotages in particular are really useful for bringing Pegasus Flight online, and the damage reduction Elamine offers is invaluable for both Thorr and Fjorm. I would like to replace Pegasus Flight with Wyvern Flight, or a simple AD Trace at some point. They'd both be much more consistent alternatives for her. I did also have a Galeforce-oriented team set up for the week. Having Thor Summoner supported meant that I didn't want to try relying on Fury to enable Wings of Mercy, so I went with Guidance instead. It's not quite as consistent as Ash or Wings of Mercy, but the extra movement it offers can still enable the team. Using Unity is also a convenient way to adjust her damage output, and potentially avoid one-shotting her targets. Azura, Dimitri, and Byleth offer a variety of follow-up options, especially thanks to Azura's Infantry Rush. While it might seem redundant thanks to Thor's Worldbreaker, being able to spread out the range of special acceleration effects helps a lot for positioning during a match. Having two separate sweep effects, along with Byleth's built-in null follow-up and tempo, also makes the engagements very safe and helps the team ignore guard effects and the new Hex Trap. Now that we've gone over the teams, let's get to the first match. This match is going to be a really interesting debut for the week. I wasn't expecting to run into a maxed out Chrom in the first match, but it'll definitely be an experience for Fjorm to handle. And, well, they're backing that up with a very impressive maxed out Hardy Fighter's Hector. Using Sacred Cowl instead of Aegis is a good way to make sure that even if he gets a guard effect applied to him, he'll always be able to recharge this very quickly thanks to the Steady Breath. And Lucina's a very effective near-save tank. The speed-based kit she has is a good way to help throw off any opponents who would usually be able to break through a slower save tank, and the amount of damage reduction she gets on that first hit is pretty significant. Catria, as usual, is just a menace, at least in Dark Seasons. Astra, she does have to worry about Elamine, but this team does include a couple of very important other turn 1 skills, in this Sonya with her pre-charged Luna, and Odor with his pre-charged Brutal Shell. Together with Time's Pulse on Chrom, it makes it a little bit tricky to pick which one you want to disable, and disabling one of these means that all it takes is one Change Fate from Chrom to enable his Deadeye, which is usually going to help him land a kill on anything he attacks. This map took a bit of thinking to plan out, but I do think I've figured out a way to make this work, and it's going to take a couple of turns to set up for it. I'm going to make sure we keep this lane isolated the entire time, or false started, just because while I do think I've got the AI down here and Chrom shouldn't change fate until the map is active, there's a chance I've missed something and he ends up repositioning Mirabilis over to the right after the first turn, and I'd rather not let him get this Deadeye pre-charged. So we'll start by just moving Elamine down here and dancing her, while Ashura and Fjorm open up this side of the structures. We'll have Thorr reposition Mooseball over here, and get him in place to get smited onto this bolt trap next turn. We'll just move Elamine back up on tile. We don't have to worry about this turn, since the safety fence just runs it off. That means we can move Fjorm out of the blast radius, smite Mooseball onto this trap if it's real. And it was, okay. Only 30 damage, so Nothing too bad, and this healing tower will top them all back off before the next turn.
Now
But we can move Mooseball out of their attack range.
they
And we'll move
will
Thorr up
submit.
here,
I'll
use
do
Dance
it.
her,
I seek a
and move her
foe.
into the corner. Now from here, Mirabilis is going to jump forward to Dance Chrom, but I think that should be the end of their turn. Yep. Excellent.
By
And from
your
here we
will.
can start getting into position. Forcer's going to move forward, start things off,
Lady
and
Nipple.
Fjorm's going to complete her buff set by swapping with Mooseball, who can then swap Thorr into position. And this actually stops Mirabilis from getting past Thorr thanks to Obstruct, making this a safe spot for Elamine to stand,
Close
while
your
Plumeria
eyes.
and
I
Ashura
am the
move in
answer.
behind them. The start here should just be a dance on Chrom, who gets to attack Fjorm for a very significant amount of damage. But it's not a Deadeye, which makes it survivable. And between the reflected damage and Mooseball, she can one-shot him even if she does 0 damage at the start.
Yes, I know, ridiculous.
Sonya can also do a pretty significant amount of damage. Unity does a lot of work when she gets to take advantage of our sabotages, but again, it doesn't really punch through the damage reduction, and Lucina is
Great meal near.
not going to have a good time with Thorr. And then everyone just moves in behind them. From here we just want to make sure we get to these pots before Thorr finishes off all of the rest of these melee, and I think we can manage that
I
just
seek a
by having
foe.
her float on down here. This actually stops Odur from moving through Hector's tile thanks to Obstruct, and
I'll
that
do
should
it.
let us position
go.
everybody in behind her
Yes.
to enable all of her
Fancy
buffs,
that.
while
Yes.
also keeping Catria alive for next turn. She shouldn't have any problems handling Odur and everyone else here, and amusingly, Mirabilis actually takes the
a warrior
first
is
swing,
owed respect.
probably since Odur isn't actually going to get damage to stick with this brutal shell.
Show me your strength.
Down he goes. And, well, Hector isn't having a good time with this either.
A warrior is owed respect.
Oh, and Catria is being polite, too. She's actually managed to get herself false started every turn, even after the map started moving.
I am the
And then
answer.
we can have Asher break one pot
I
and
seek a
reposition
foe.
her back out of Catria's range. And Mooseball is going to go on a bit of a sneaking mission to try and reach this Aether pot.
Why not?
We should be able to bait Catria towards Elamine and
Fancy
Plumeria here,
that.
and not into Mooseball since she can't really do damage to him. At least that's the hope. Yeah, perfect. And Mooseball can just sprint over here, snag her Aether pot,
By your will, they will
and we'll let
submit.
Thorr close out the match. That was a fun debut for this team. It's good to see Thorr do this well. This match is going to be another fun one, especially just because we get to see another attack speed unity after yesterday's. The Dogger and Chrom are a pretty solid 1-2 punch, and this rally trap with Odur is a nice way to try and catch people off guard. Nyx in particular with no follow-up and Unity is actually very hard to knock out in one counterattack, thanks to the 40% damage reduction she gets, and if you're using a couple of sabotages like I am, this attack speed unity gives her a very significant edge in combat. The Deathblow Bravesword Mirabilis is a fun touch, and this Goose Stop's actually very hard to crack open thanks to a combination of Svalin and Breath and Pavis. The Tharj is also pretty solid here. The Raven Tome is a good way to help deny Yuris and Linjas, and attacking into her through the distant defense and potentially a defense tactic from Odur makes her a pretty difficult safe tank to crack. Planning this out is actually a little bit tricky since, if I'm not careful, this Nyx could potentially actually double Fjorm, and while that wouldn't knock Fjorm out on her own, it would give Chrom an opening to potentially snipe her when Ice Mirror is not online. So we're just going to make sure we avoid that. And get things started right away. I am actually going to false start Odor this time. While it is fun to let Thorr tank these brutal shells, getting rid of this defense tactic is a good way to soften up Nyx a little bit, and Chrom too, and make sure Fjorm doesn't have any problems punching through them.
Yes.
So I'll just get things going right away and break this statue, and let L9 jump past Thorr and nudge her forwards, and swap Fjorm and complete her buff spectrum.
Yes.
Have Fjorm step over,
Close your
move
eyes.
Plumeria down, and say go. From here, I think the rally should happen first, followed by a dance from Mirabilis. Okay, and he does end up rallying Nyx. And then again on Odor, or Dogger, rather. And then Chrom moves in first, since he does a lot more damage than Nyx. And since Fjorm will actually be able to knock them both out, he'll go first. Nyx follows in, and can actually double Fjorm here. Or would be able to, if she survived this first counterattack. And then Dogger moves in, and, well, that attack is only going to heal Fjorm back to full health. And Gustav can't really do much, so
I am the
here
answer.
we'll just let Ashura open this throne up, and open the way towards this pot for next turn, and just wait in place again. Since Uber's the only one who can attack us, he shouldn't rally and just attack instead. Yep. And Thor's not going to have any problems spotting that.
Show me your strength.
And the rest of the team's just going to slowly filter forwards. And from here we'll just move forward just a little bit to bait Mirabilis and Gustav at the same time,
Speak. There is but one future.
Little niffle.
and wait one more
Why
turn
not?
to reach these pots. Yep. Gustav might actually survive this combat, but
Stay resolute. I'm ready.
all that really does is get him danced, and let Thorr counterattack him again. And this time he's not going to survive.
Show me your strength.
Yes.
Now we'll just start actually snagging these Aether pots.
I
It's
seek a
actually taken a
foe.
bit
By your
longer than I
will.
expected it to slowly get this cleared out. But that's okay.
Show me your strength.
I'm not going to knock Tharsha out here and just let Thorr tank her instead.
Fancy that.
I will go. I'll protect you.
And we'll start working
Close your
Ashura
eyes.
down here
I am the answer.
to help us get to this pot. Oh. Tharsha can't really get anything done. Not with the purely enemy phase kit when she attacks Thorr. And we'll just nudge Thorr onto this gravity trap, which is fake. Move Mooseball
not?
over, dance him to reach the Aether pot,
They will
and let
submit.
Thorr close out the match.
Great Mjolnir.
This match is an interesting setup. It's boxed in and is a bit of a safe ball, but with the catch of actually having all of their units equipped. That actually can make it a little trickier to handle than your usual safe ball that just won't attack you no matter what, since it does make things a little more dangerous to approach and handle if you start engaging on them. This Catria in particular, assuming she doesn't run into an L9, makes everything much more threatening thanks to the triangle attacks, and Gatekeeper's ability to shut down warp effects and limit the movement of ranged units in his area can also make it pretty hard to engage on this easily. Mismar is also a very impressive near-save tank, and the Brave Edelgard-like effect in her Refine makes her hard to break in one round of combat if you're engaging on her. And if she gets to triangle attack, she hits pretty hard. while Flame just does a really good job of making it extra annoying to actually break any of these, whether or not you're trying to attack into it or tank through them. I'm going to take a couple of turns here just to set up and get ready for this fight. Mostly to test these bolt traps in the front, and then get going from there.
I seek a foe.
We're going to have Thorr reposition around forward and thankfully find the real trap immediately. While that does injure Thorr, it's not a terrible thing since we can just start healing her with
By your
All-Might.
will.
Yes?
We can just start using guidance to move Fjorm forwards as long as we're not trying to warp into these tiles. She can still use guidance to move around the map.
Now.
And meanwhile we can have Muspel open this up,
I am the
dash her
answer.
move up here.
I will go.
While All-Might heals Thorr,
I seek a
and lets her
foe.
move over this way.
I
And from
seek a
there we
foe.
can get things going. Or can actually just cruise on in and break through Gatekeeper. Even with All-Might involved, he's not really going to survive this.
A warrior is owed respect.
I'm glad we got that quote from her for this. It's a bit of a callback to the Forging Bonds. I actually did forget about this tactic room, and may have moved a little earlier than we should have, but it should be okay. I'll just dance L9 here, let her nudge Thorr all the way forwards into position.
Fancy
And then we'll
that?
have Muspel move up here and secure a pot while getting in range to buff Thorr.
I'll
We'll
protect you.
move Fjorm and
There is
Ashra
but one
forward slowly
future.
to help out next turn, potentially. Thorr should actually be okay here. Even the Flame gets to attack her for free, it's not really going to do damage. And, well, without triangle attacks, Catria isn't getting anything done.
Show me your strength.
Honestly, she'd probably be okay even if she got to triangle attack, but well, Ceres isn't going to get anything here either. The triangle disadvantage is a little bit much.
A warrior is owed respect.
Oh, and Mar does get to move in and attack. Unfortunately for her, attacking into Thorr means that Thor's not going to have too much trouble handling her, even through the flame damage reduction. And we should be able to close things out here by swapping All-Might down a space
the
and
answer.
smiting her over, which lets her reach this Aether pot. And
I
then we
seek
can
a
have
foe.
Fjorm continue to dismantle the rest of their team. Fjorm.
Stay resolute.
Thorr.
I'm ready.
Who gets an easy full heal from that
Close
first
your
attack,
eyes.
and then we'll just dance her
They will
and
submit.
let her knock out Flame for enemy facing the Miraculous. That went pretty well, considering I kind of goofed a little on my execution.
Stay resolute. I'm ready.
It is fun to see Thorr actually just 1v7 like that. This match will be an interesting one. It's the first one that I've decided to use the Galeforce option this week. And it's mostly because this is a very annoying team just for securing these Aether pots before you knock everything out. Because they're using 6 cavalry units on their team, it becomes very hard to actually avoid anything before the end of the match without having someone like Lagarn or Leaf, or even Leaf or Odor, sneak their way onto a target you don't want them to attack. And even Azura can actually hit pretty hard too, with the combined Fury and Life and Death, which makes it pretty tricky to just wall any of these out, unless you can pin them against a wall. The main trap here involves just Azura dancing Lagarn, which gives her a full spectrum of buffs to enable her weapon and lets her pick her target pretty easily, as long as something's in range. There is a rally follow-up from Niffle, since Azura will extend this threat range a bit when she dances forward and then get danced again by Sigurd, but it's pretty easy to defuse this with isolation, and the team as a whole is a bit vulnerable to just being farsave tanked. although the combination of Odor and Niffle can be a little tricky for the melee half to handle if they're not properly equipped. I have a pretty good idea of the way I'd like to approach this, but I'm not entirely sure of the specifics yet, since I need to test these two traps before we settle on a firm plan. So we're going to start by repositioning Azura forward as a real trap, and it does affect Byleth.
Yes.
And then also smiting Dimitri forward to test the bolt trap. And since this bolt trap was unfortunately fake and Byleth is gravity, we need to be a little bit convoluted with how we approach this. I'm going to dance Byleth and then have Azura jump past Lumeria with the guidance.
I seek a foe.
Then reposition Lumeria over.
Let's move.
And we'll count on the safety fence
Do what you
to
please.
dodge their first turn. I actually ended up having to double check my math a little bit because this fortress actually means that we're hitting harder than I expected, which is almost a problem because we do need to make sure that we get 2 hits on the Ceres with Thorr. Thankfully, by leaving Attack Def Unity offline and taking advantage of the Sniffle, we should be able to just barely avoid one-shotting the Ceres. Yep. And now that we've gotten the second hit, Thorr gets to Galeforce this pretty easily. And we can start moving everybody else in.
Let's move.
Byleth is just going to get danced forward by Azura.
Yes.
And should be able to secure a pretty easy knockout and Galeforce on Lake Yarn. Meanwhile, we'll have Ashura get danced and smite Dimitri forwards too. And he should be able to also barely avoid one-shotting Azura. Niffle helps here too, while also getting Galeforce. And from there we can just start moving in to box in their ranged units and end the turn.
I'll handle this.
Dimitri's not actually going to get to Kanto here, but that's fine. He's already in the right position to work with, so we don't need to move him anywhere.
They will submit.
Then Thorr can move in and finish off with Leaf. And with Secret boxed in, there's just not much they can do.
What now?
So we'll have Byleth pick up on Aether Fountain,
They're mine.
Dimitri pick up the pot,
I
and
seek
let
a
for a
foe.
pleasant match. That was a fun one. I was hoping to get Azura involved in that, but without the bolt trap, it's not as easy for her to get involved. This match will be another fun Galeforce clear, and the first one that I've started running into these Hex Traps. I do think the Hex Trap is a neat addition, and if it gets another upgrade, could be a pretty tricky thing to navigate around. Even at 55 health, it can actually hit quite a few opponents, and stopping a potential disarm trap user from being able to work properly is a very powerful effect. The rest of their team's a bit of a safe ball here, with Gustav and Fjorm guarding them from hit-and-run attempts, and Catria, combined with Alm, as their major threat. A triangle attack Thracer can also do a lot of work if you're not respecting her, as can Ceres. I do think this should be a fairly straightforward clear, but I will need to take a couple of turns just to set things up properly. Thankfully, the team doesn't have a turn 1 or dense trap with the 7th unit, so we can take our time with opening things up and getting into position.
There is but one future.
Close your eyes.
And once we get everything opened up, we should be able to
They're mine.
clean things up without too much trouble.
A brilliant thought.
And from here,
Do
we're
what
just
you
going to
please.
get Azura into this tile above the lake,
Without question.
I seek a
and
foe.
meanwhile have Thorr and
What now?
Byleth and
I am the
Ashura
answer.
move into position to get all of their buffs. And from here, we
Let's
should be
move.
able to just have Byleth reposition Thorr forwards,
Why
and
not?
then dance her. And
They
since
will
Thorr has 60
submit.
hit points here, she should be able to just move on to this trap and not Galeforce, through Gustav. She'll be able to take him down, even through this damage reduction, and she won't actually Galeforce here either. Which is fine.
Yes.
We're also going to smite Dimitri forward, and
I'll
have
handle
him
this.
Galeforce through Saros. Just barely.
What now?
And Byleth can use Guidance to move in and Galeforce through Catria.
The
And
brilliant
then
thought.
Azura can dance Thorr.
They're
We'll have Dimitri
mine.
move over and knock out Alm. And then use Kanto to move into position to block Thracier.
By your will.
Or can get her own Gale Force by one-shotting Fjorm.
By
Then
your
we'll have
will.
Thorr move out of the way and take down Mirabilis. Before
Yes.
Byleth completes the turn by locking Thracier in place.
Do
And
what
from
you
there it's
please.
easy enough for Dimitri to pick up our second Aether pot,
What now?
and we'll reposition Thorr over
I seek a foe.
and have her close out the match. Nice and clean. This match will be a fun return to tanking. They've got a pretty neat setup here, and I really like the way they have this bolt tower set up to help enable these hex traps. It's tempting actually to use this bolt tower's damage to enable Wings of Mercy, but if you do, it can actually make this a lot trickier to navigate than it would otherwise, since 45 damage is enough to put just about anything into range of getting disabled by these traps. They're backing that up with a very impressively invested Reinhardt, and a Ninja Korin, along with this Kemp on the front line with a bonus Suikoder on the side. Gustav's here is another line of defense against Galeforce attempts, and does a pretty good job of that. The Deflect Magic's an interesting choice for him, but it does help him survive any potential hit-and-run attempts that try to pick him off before moving in with the Galeforce. And of course Azura in the corner is a second dancer. Combined with an Odd Tempest Mirabilis, these two have a lot of mobility, and can reach just about anything that starts moving on this turn. They don't actually have any turn 1 pressure though. The only thing that happens immediately is a dance from Mirabilis onto Gustav, which doesn't really extend the threat range and helps keep this team in formation and hard to approach. I am going to need to take a moment to set up for this, just to open up these front structures and move into position. I'm also deliberately leaving Odor's Brutal Shell online just to give Thorr something
seek a
on the
foe.
tank. Just going to start things off by opening up this statue. And
I am
then
the
Asher
answer.
can jump past Plumeria and open up the wall, which
Oh,
lets
I'll
Plumeria
do
dance
it.
Thorr
By your
and
will.
move her out of the threat range, while
Yes?
Fjorm swaps Plumeria
Now.
and Muspel moves over. We're out of range, so the safe defense shuts down their first turn, and now we can move into position. Muspel
Fancy
can
that?
start by swapping Thorr over to the side,
They
and
will
let her
submit.
move forward with a full set of buffs.
I'll protect
Fjorm
you.
can swap Muspel then, and complete her own set of buffs, and from there we can just have Elamine loop
There is
forwards,
but one
while
future.
Ashura
Why not?
and Plumeria move into the corner as well. From here, the first thing that should happen is, a rally first. Oh, and then the dances come through. I wasn't sure if the rally would happen first or not, or where Korin would move to, but it shouldn't matter too much. Korin can get some damage done here, but It's only just barely enough to make a dent in the self-healing afterwards, and, well,
Enough, weakling.
Odor shouldn't actually get any damage to stick at all.
A warrior is owed respect.
And then Reinhardt moves in and hopefully heals Fjorm back to full health. And then Gustav and Kemp can't really reach us here. And now, with Reinhardt and Corrin out of the way, things are a lot simpler, but I would still like to let Thorr tank this Kemp and knock him out through the wind sweep. So to do that, we need to make sure that she has a full spectrum of buffs. And since we also want to make sure that we're leaving Gustav alive and not Mirabilis, because this Odd Tempest makes her a little bit annoying to kite around,
Yes.
we're going to apply some shenanigans
I seek a foe.
to make sure that these three are the ones that get themselves knocked out here. Obstruct means that Kemp can't actually move past this heavy trap, so as long as we make sure this space is clear, he shouldn't ever be able to attack anyone other than Thorr.
I will go.
We can do that pretty easily just by nudging Mooseball over a tile,
Leading
and then
Nifl.
letting Fjorm swap Ashra to keep everybody safe from Azura.
Why
And
not?
then we'll just dance Fjorm for some extra buffs
I'll
once they go.
protect you.
I'm pretty sure Kemp attacks first here, since he does get to apply the flash and pain effects,
Great Mjolnir.
but Thorr doesn't have any problems taking him out. And while flash is usually annoying, it's not so bad when Mirabilis can't do damage to Thorr, and Fjorm has Null Sea Disrupt. Then Gustav just gets an array. Sadly, the flash effect does mean that Mirabilis survived, and I'm surprised I didn't remember that would happen, but that's okay. It just means that we'll need to bait Mirabilis into attacking someone that
I
won't
seek a
knock her
foe.
out, and finish off Gustav this turn instead.
Stay resolute. I'm ready.
To open the way!
Noontime means that Gustav is never really going to threaten Thorr, so it's easy enough for her to just carve through him. And then we'll
Fancy
just
that?
start moving over and
I'll
testing
do
these
it.
traps. Ashra's
Yes.
going to be our bait for Mirabilis, and
Speak.
we'll just nudge her onto this and see if that's the real one. It is. It can't really do much when her turn's already over. And we'll just move Moosewolf forward, since he is never going to get attacked by Mirabilis here,
Fancy that.
and open the way to this other Aether pot. Ashra tanks Mirabilis pretty handily. And that makes it easy for us to pick up both of the
There
Aether
is but
pots
one future.
They will
before letting
submit.
Thorr close out the match.
A warrior is owed respect.
That was a fun one. This match will be another fun Galeforce clear near the end of the week. They've got a pretty neat setup here with a rarely seen at this point OG Elliewood. I do still like the lunge setup on him. I think it can do quite a bit of work. And backing him up with a Shamir to help punch through those safe armors, and Leaf to do the same, helps ensure that they actually have some options against those kinds of teams. And this Azura should always dance forward onto Shamir, which gives her a much larger threat range than you might expect. And of course, Azura's boosting thrice here with Wings of Light for some extra threat. Not guarding their front line with traps is a bit of a weakness, though, that I'm planning to take advantage of here. And we should be able to actually start things and clear things almost in the first turn. We'll actually just start by having Thorr reposition Azura forwards, and
Why
then
not?
dancing her, and
Yes.
smiting her forward here, and let
They
her move
will
in and
submit.
Galeforce off of Elliewood. From there, Azura should be able to jump past her and Galeforce off of Thracier. While Byleth repositions Dimitri forward and he'll be able to use Infantry
Do
Rush
what you please.
to Galeforce off of Seras. And then we can just continue the rampage, letting Azura knock out Leaf. And having Dimitri move in to take out Shamir. And wait in place to lock their Azura in place,
They will submit.
while Thorr finishes off Micaiah. It's fun to actually pull that off on the first turn.
By your
And here
will.
we'll just have Thorr pick up one
They're
Ether pot,
mine.
Dimitri get the second,
Without
and let Azura
question.
finish herself off. This map should be a pretty straightforward one at the end of the week. It's a rematch with a bit of an old school Cav line, featuring a maxed out Reinhardt, and the usual suspects of Brave Veronica and Summer Mia, with a Winter Bernadetta to help enable a bit of a heal trap with this Veronica, who, if this goes off, would probably go over to heal Mia, get danced, and be able to threaten more of the side of the map. It also helps enable both Bernadettas here, with one with the Persecution Bow and the other with her Priest. And once these weapons are online, they're actually quite spooky to handle. Desperation isn't a joke, especially when most non-Brave Ike tanks don't really like handling that, and the extra stats from Priest and damage reduction on the first hit do a lot of work. It's actually a bit annoying to knock either Mia or this Bernadette out in one round of combat. As long as they outspeed their opponents, it can be tricky to knock them out. And this Reinhardt is very deceptively bulky too, with the double solos and the lull. It is vulnerable though to either being false started on this Bernadetta with an Elamine, or isolated if Veronica or Mirabilis gets hit with that. And of course the whole thing is extremely vulnerable to a solid Farsave tank who can just weather the storm, which is how we're going to be approaching this. We'll actually get things started on the first turn here. We'll just have Thorr break this and then
Speak.
nudge her forward into a savable location.
Close
Then
your
we'll dense
eyes.
Elamine,
Lady
have
Nifl.
Fjorm break this mirror, and let Elamine move up to here to make sure she's getting damage reduction,
Now.
and then swap Fjorm into place to keep everybody safe.
I am the answer.
Veronica moves in first, and well, she's not going to get anything done here. Except for debuffing Fjorm and doing some splash damage. Or, no splash damage, that's right. It's not pain. But, although Reinhardt can make it through the ice mirror, he just can't actually do damage past that. And well, without Priest online, Bernie is a lot less spooky. And some Mia is also just getting pretty easily outsped. And from here, I think we'll get Bernadetta too. Yep, the other Bernadetta, who should also just run face first into Fjorm. She's not quite fast enough to outspeed Fjorm, but if she was, and had her Desperation online, she'd actually do quite a bit of damage there. And now I just want to, as usual, be a bit of a completionist and pick these pots up before we close things out.
They will submit.
It shouldn't be
I'll
too
do
bad.
it.
There is but one future.
I'll just pick up one, stay out of range of Mirabilis, and And from there we can just nudge Mooseball,
Yes.
then smite him all the way onto the trap. Oh, and it's fake. He can grab the pot, and Thorr can bring the week to an end.
Show me your strength.
She didn't do much in this last match, but it's okay. It was a really fun week overall. It's nice to see Thorr doing this well as just a solo, not solo, but multi-carry with Fjorm backing her up. And I'm looking forward to using her like this more in her bonus weeks. I don't think, as usual, that a mythic carry works quite as well outside of the bonus weeks, as extra stats are just a little bit too valuable, but it is nice to see her doing this well, and I'm hoping to be able to update her build a little bit with some better skills going forward, specifically for her B-slot. Next week's matches should also be fun. I'm actually planning to, if possible, try to use Hel as an offense mythic instead of a defense one, although she'll be showing up on the defense side of things as well, just to make sure the lift loss doesn't get out of hand, since I will be sacrificing quite a bit to use a defense mythic on an offense team, but it should be fun. I do have a Discord channel if you'd like to hang out and chat or get updates about videos and schedules. There's a link in the description, and I've also got a Patreon page there if you'd like to help support the channel. As always, I hope you've enjoyed the video, good luck with your own matches, and I'll see you next time.